Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today I will talk about a topic: globalization benefits and its effects. When you talk about the benefits of globalization, there is a subsidiary body of the United Nations, which is called Committee for Development Policy. According to this committee, from an economic point of view, globalization can be defined as the increasing interdependence of world economies as a result of the growing scale of cross-border trade of commodities and services, the flow of international capital, and the wide and rapid spread of technologies. It reflects the continuing expansions the continuing expansion and mutual integration of market frontiers, the rapid growing significance of information in all types of productive activities, and marketizations are the two major driving forces for economic globalization. There is a terminology which is called the globalization in geography. In geography, globalization is defined as the set of processes which can be economic, social, cultural, technological, institutional that contribute to the relationship between societies and individuals around the world. It is a progressive process by which exchanges and flows between different parts of the world are intensified. So, what does it mean? There is a term which is the G20, commonly used in globalization process. The G20 is a global bloc which is composed by the governments and central bank governors from the 19th century and the European Unions. This was established in 1999. The G20 gathers the most important industrialized and developing economies to discuss international economic and financial stability. Together, the nations of the G20 account for around 80% of global economic output. Early 75% of all global trade and about two-thirds of the world's population. G20 leaders get together in an annual summit to discuss and coordinate pressing global issues of mutual interest. Though economic and trade are usually the centerpieces of each summit's agenda, issues like climate change, migration policies, terrorism, and the future of work are the global wealth are recurring focuses too. Since the G20 leaders represent the political backbone of the global financial architecture that secures open markets, orderly capital flows, and a safety net for countries in difficulty. It is often thanks to bilateral meetings during summits that major international agreements are achieved and that globalization is able to move forward. The joint action of G20 leaders has unquestionably been useful to save the global financial system in the 2008 and 2009 crisis. And we should be thankful, thanks to the trade barriers removal and the implementations of huge financial reforms, the G20 was been struggling to be successful at coordinating monetary and fiscal policies. and unable to root out tax evasion and corruption. Among other downsides of globalization is a result of this and other failures from the G20 in coordinating globalization, popular nationalist movements across the world have been defending countries should pursue their interests alone or form fruitful coalitions between them. The ability of countries to rise above narrow self interest has brought unprecedented economic wealth and plenty of applicable scientific progress. However, for different reasons, not everyone has been benefiting the same from globalization and technological change. Wealth is unfairly distributed, and economic growth came at huge environmental costs. According to the former president of the International Monetary Fund, which is IMF, his name is Christian Lagarde. According to him, debates about trade and access to foreign goods are as old as society itself. And history tells us that closing borders or protectionism policies are not the way to go, as many countries doing it have failed. Lagarde defends we should pursue globalization policies that extend the benefits of openness and integration while alleviating their side effects. How to make globalization more just as a very complex question that involves redesigning economic systems. But how? That's the question. Globalization is deeply connected with the economic systems and markets, which on their turn are the impacted by social issues, cultural factors that are hard to overcome. Regional specificities, timings of actions, and collaborative networks. All of this requires, on one hand, global consensus and cooperation, and on the other hand, country specific solutions apart from a good definition of the adjectives. When you talk about the globalization concept map, some examples of globalizations are the economic globalization, financial globalization, cultural, political, and sociological globalization. Besides, there is a geographic globalization. So, let's talk about the financial globalization. Where the financial globalization can be linked with the rise of a global financial system, with international financial exchanges and monetary exchanges, stock markets, for instance, are a great example of the financially connected global world, since when one stock market has a decline, it affects other markets negatively as well as the economy as a whole. Next is the cultural globalization, which refers to the interpenetrations of cultures, which is a consequence means nations adopt principles, beliefs, and costumes of other nations, losing their unique culture to a unique globalized supra-culture. Political globalization is the development and growing influence of international organizations such as the United Nations or the World Health Organization. Means governmental action takes place at an international level. There are other bodies operating a global level, such as the NGOs like Doctors Without Borders. The fourth one is the sociological globalization. Here, information moves almost in real time. Together with the interconnection and interdependence of events and their consequences, people move all the time, mixing and integrating different societies. The last one is the geographic globalization. The geographical globalization is the new organization and hierarchy of different regions of the world that is constantly changing. Moreover, with transportation and flying made so easy and affordable, apart from a few countries with the demanding visas, it is possible to travel the world without barely any restrictions. There are different benefits of globalization. Let's talk about one by one. Globalization has benefits that cover many different areas. It reciprocally developed economies all over the world and increased cultural exchanges. It also allowed financial exchanges between companies, changing the paradigm of work. Many people are nowadays citizens of the world. The origin of goods became secondary, and the geographic distance is no longer a barrier for many services to happen. Like the engine of globalization is an economic example. The most visible impacts of globalization are definitely the ones affecting the economic world. Globalization has led to a sharp increase in trade and economic exchanges, but also to a multiplication of financial exchanges. Like in the 1970s, world economies opened up and development of free trade policies accelerated the globalization phenomena. Between 1950 and 2010, world exports increased 33-fold. This has significantly contributed to increasing the interactions between different regions of the world. This acceleration of economic exchanges has led to strong global economic growth. It fostered as well a rapid global industrial development that allowed the rapid development of many of the technologies and commodities we have available nowadays. Knowledge became easily shared, and international cooperation among the brightest minds speeded things up. According to some analysts, globalization has also contributed to improving global economic conditions, creating much economic wealth. The next benefit is the globalization benefits, a financial example. At the same time, finance also became globalized. From the 1980s, driven by neoliberal policies, the world of finance gradually opened. Many states, particularly the United States under the Ronald Reagan and the United Kingdom under the Margaret Thatcher, introduced the famous 3D policy, which is disintermediation, decommissioning, deregulation, the 3D. The idea was to simply finance regulations, eliminate mediators, and break down the barriers between the world's financial centers. The goal was to make it easier to exchange capital between the world's financial players. This financial globalization has contributed to the rise of a global financial market in which contracts and capital exchanges have multiplied. And next is the globalization, a cultural example. Together with the economic and financial globalization, there has obviously also been cultural globalization. Indeed, the multiplication of economic and financial exchanges has been followed by an increase in human exchanges, such as the migration or the traveling. These human exchanges have contributed to the development of cultural exchanges. This means that different customs and habits shared among local communities have been shared among communities that has been used to or have different procedures and even different beliefs. Good example of cultural globalization are the trading of commodities such as the coffee or avocados. Coffee is said to be originally from Ethiopia and consumed in the Arab region. Due to the commercial trades after the 11th century, it is nowadays known as a globally consumed commodity. Avocados, for instance, grown mostly under the tropical temperatures of Mexico, the Dominican Republic or Peru. They started by being produced in small quantities to supply the local populations. But today, avocados, the touts are common in meals all over the world. Why there is a question in your minds that why is globalization bad or the negative effects of globalization? Globalization is a complex phenomena. As such, it has a considerable influence on several areas of contemporary societies. Let's take a look at some of the main negative effects globalization has had so far, like the negative effects of globalization on cultural loss. Apart from all the benefits that we have discussed, globalization has had on allowing cultural exchanges. It also homogenized the world's cultures. That's why specific cultural characteristics from some countries are disappearing, from languages to traditions, or even specific industries. That's why, according to UNESCO, the mix between the benefits of globalization and the protection of global cultural uniquenesses requires a careful approach. There is another negative effect, which is the economic negative effects of globalization. Despite its benefits, the economic growth driven by the globalization has not been done without awakening criticism. The consequences of globalization are far from homogeneous. Income inequalities, disproportional wealth, and trades that benefit parties differently. In the end, one of the criticism is that some actors, countries or companies or even an individual benefit from the phenomena of globalization, while others are sometimes perceived as the losers of globalization. As a matter of fact, a recent report from Oxfam, it says that 82% of the world's generated wealth goes to 1% of the population. There is another negative effect of globalization on the environment. Many critics have also pointed out the globalization has negative effects on the environment. Thus, the massive development of transport that has been the basis of globalization is also responsible for serious environmental problems such as the greenhouse gas emission, global warming, or even an air pollution. At the same time, global economic growth and industrial productivity are both the driving force and the major consequences of globalization. They also have big environmental consequences. as they contribute to the depletion of natural resources, the deforestation, and the destruction of ecosystems, and the loss of biodiversity. The worldwide distribution of goods is also creating a big garbage problem, especially on what concerns plastic pollutions. So these were some negative effects of globalization on the world. I think it's enough for today. Kindly subscribe my channel so that whenever I upload my next video, you will get it easily. Thank you for watching my video lecture, and best of luck.